We're trying for a goal by going the other way around. Let's see if anyone notices.
Hey, you're trying for a goal by going the other way around, huh? You're crazy!
Oh, you got me. Man, nothing gets past that guy. Ridge Racer was one of the first 8 PlayStation games released in Japan in 1994, and it later premiered as a launch title in North America and Europe. It played a key role in the PlayStation's success worldwide, proving that the hardware could deliver faithful ports of contemporary arcade games. This was an important point to establish, as arcade hardware at the time had become too difficult for 16-bit consoles to replicate, often resulting in substandard ports of 90s arcade games. Ridge Racer hit arcades in 1993, arriving a year before Sega's breakthrough arcade racer, Daytona USA. Ridge Racer 2, a slightly upgraded version of Ridge Racer 1 featuring some design tweaks and networked play for 2 or more players, also launched in 1994. Namco's PlayStation port is based largely on Ridge Racer 2, minus the multiplayer mode. For its time, Ridge Racer was a real achievement. It gave a genuine sense of speed during gameplay while showcasing some impressive visuals. Arcade racers had made early attempts at polygonal 3D in the late 80s and early 90s, with games like Atari's Hard Drivin' and Sega's Virtua Racing. Namco, having established a basic formula for arcade driving games with 1982's Pole Position, produced a number of similar games in the years leading up to Ridge Racer, including Suzuka 8 Hours, Final Lap, and Winning Run. Early 3D racers used flat-shaded polygons, and their low frame rates often didn't give the sense of speed that racing games need. Ridge Racer, then, was a revelation, pushing out texture-mapped polygons while still maintaining a solid frame rate and a great sense of speed. Until Daytona USA showed up, this was pretty much the new standard for arcade racers. The PlayStation version of Ridge Racer loses little in the transition from arcade to console. Unfortunately, it doesn't gain much either. It's a pretty straightforward port, and there's really only one racetrack in the entire game. Sure, you can race across multiple difficulty levels, and the higher difficulty settings add an extra section of track full of tight corridors and twisting turns, but otherwise you're stuck racing on the same stretch of road for the entire game. But back in 1995, that didn't matter all that much. The game is, at its core, fun enough to make up for the lack of content, and there's some PlayStation exclusive extras that make the home port worthwhile. After completing the game's first 4 challenges, you unlock an additional 4 stages. Here, you race on the same racetrack as you did before, but you do it backwards. This was something you couldn't do in the original arcade game. The TT Extra course is another unlockable challenge, and it's brutal. It takes place at night with limited visibility, and pits you against a super fast rival car that'll zoom past you and easily win if you don't physically block it with your own vehicle during every second of the race. If you do somehow manage to beat the car, you'll unlock it for play, and you'll find out that it has the best stats of any vehicle in the game. Namco did all that it could to make Ridge Racer a good fit for consoles, in other words, but the limited amount of content in the arcade original meant that the porting staff had little to work with. Still, that didn't stop me from playing the game for hours and hours until I finally unlocked everything back in the 90s. Ridge Racer also has a bunch of little idiosyncrasies that give it a unique personality. The game opens with a loading screen featuring a playable version of Namco's 1979 arcade shooter Galaxian. If you can shoot down all of the enemies before the loading is finished, you unlock 8 additional cars. And since the game never has to access the disc after its initial load time, you can open the PlayStation's lid and replace the Ridge Racer disc with any audio CD and listen to your own tracks during the race. While Ridge Racer lacks the sort of depth you'd expect from a racing game even back in 1995, it makes up for it in terms of presentation and polish. It's fast and fluid, and it's just plain fun to play. Ridge Racer set high standards for arcade ports on the PlayStation, and Namco followed up in the months after its launch with equally solid conversions of many of its most popular arcade games. Thank you for watching. Next time we'll cover the other racing game available at the PlayStation's launch, ESPN Extreme Games. If you like this series, tell your friends. I enjoy making these videos and I love sharing them with fans of 90s era console history. See you soon!